Hi, my name is Scott Buchanan with Imaginate Technologies, and we're going to take a look at how we can enhance the insulation options in our Revit fabrication database. So with the sample Revit MEP fabrication database, we only have two insulations to choose from. So if I were to select a fabrication run a pipe and go to its properties, we're going to have an insulation specification. Right now it's set to off. We're going to see those two insulations that are available to us, general insulation and steam lagging. So if I choose my general insulation there, we'll go ahead and see that get applied to the pipe. And I'm going to go ahead and apply it to this 6-inch run a pipe as well. And then we can see it adjust on the screen. Now I want to go ahead and apply it to two different sizes because initially it may look like there's only two insulations there and it's kind of playing a guessing game as far as what size that insulation is or what that thickness is. But it's actually set up in the fabrication database to go based upon size. So if I take a look at this pipe here, which is 1.5 inches, I have already put a little cheater line in here to show you that the insulation thickness is 1 inch. So if I were to offset this detail line I kind of sketched in here, we've got a 1 inch offset, and I can see that gets it right there. So that 1.5 inch pipe automatically went to a 1 inch insulation. If I were to look at this 6-inch pipe in that fabrication database, it's actually jumping to a different thickness automatically, and that's actually 1.25 inches. So again, just using these detail lines to kind of show you that thickness that's in there. Right, so this is set up basically with some rules inside of there. I don't want to use the word code, but we could potentially set up some rules in there that automatically assigns an insulation thickness based upon the size of pipe that we're running. Now we would potentially look to expand that because obviously those size rules change based upon the temperature in the pipe and things like that. So if we were doing steam or steam condensate or domestic hot water lines, that thickness range is going to be different based upon whatever we're trying to follow, whether it's ashtray tables or anything like that. So let's take a look at how we can kind of decipher that insulation, and then also maybe we just want to add some standard insulations that are not doing the automatic sizing for us, but more of just an assignment of, hey, I want 1/2 inch, or I want 1 inch, or I want 1.5 inches. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. We will need access to Fabrication CAD MEP. So now I have Fabrication CAD MEP because this gives me the ability to open up a database and actually edit that database. We cannot edit a fabrication database with Revit. Now you can also edit this database with the CAM Duct application and SMEP, but we're going to go ahead and use CAD MEP. So I have the same database being used in Revit right now, so I'm going to go ahead and launch that. For this portion of the database, we will actually go into the main database settings, which is just the little book icon here. And once it launches, we'll go into our fittings area. Then we're taking a look at insulation specifications. So this is going to be applicable for ductwork as well. It's the exact same process, building these additional ones inside of there. We can go ahead and get those set up. Now, when it comes to insulation, there's actually a lot more behind the scenes with that insulation than what we see inside of Revit. So in this specification, if I were to switch over to pipework, there's those same two options, right? So my general insulation changes my library to pipework, and here's where those rules are kicking in, right? So why was that? I'm sorry, it's 1.25 inch piece of pipe that had the 1 inch insulation on it. So it was automatically assigning that material thickness, and the pipe coming off of that pump suction side was a 6-inch pipe, so that's why it used the 1.25 inch. And there's some thresholds set up inside of here. So basically this is saying 1.25 inch and under, use that 1 inch, 6 inch and under, that 12 inch to 6 inch roughly, and then above that it's getting 1.75 inches. Now it's not as detailed if we were to look at, you know, the steam. Not as much variance inside of there. Obviously we've got a lot thicker insulation being applied to it for those higher temperatures being used. So going back to the general insulation here, this is actually made up of a couple things. It's got this actual dimension rule assigned to it, and then it has an insulation material. So here's more of that behind the scenes type of data that we don't see in Revit. There's actually additional materials in there as well. Even though they're not all being used in this particular setup, they are inside of there. And these actual materials originate from a little bit of a different area, just a little bit lower here. If I go to insulations, go to the actual material itself, there's that phenolic, and then it's got all of the different size ranges available inside of there as well. And costing and so forth, again, much deeper than just the modeling aspect of it when we start drilling into this database. So this index or size range that's available, or individual sizes, what dictates that available size that we can choose here as well. So let's say we wanted to not have that automatic assignment of the thickness based upon size. We wanted to just, you know, assign 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, and so on. What I could actually do is with this general insulation, I'm going to come over and create myself a new specification. And when I do that, it's going to ask me, do I want to create a copy of that original one? That's a great idea to always copy from one of these existing ones. And it's going to go ahead and allow me to give this thing a name. So let's say I just went with 1 inch general insulation. It's outside, obviously, and we can leave the rest alone. So that gives me a new specification, and down here I can start to get rid of kind of these sizing rules that are in there, so I can highlight them all and hit delete. And I'm going to get rid of all of them except for that highest one. So basically I'm saying any size pipe up to 9,999 inches is going to get a 1 inch thick piece of insulation. Right, so that's the only option that's available for it, and that's why I've named it there. It's really direct with that naming being assigned to it. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing again. So I'll create another new specification, and you can increment these versions. It's basically just saying how many times you've modified each of them, or you can leave them the same. So I'm going to create that copy, and instead of it being general insulation 1 inch, I'm going to go 1.5 inches. Again, everything else gets left alone. Go ahead and accept it, and I've essentially done the majority of the work already, but go ahead and change that insulation material from 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And again, no different on the ductwork side of things. If I were to get out of here and go to rectangular and switch to the ductwork insulation, you can see they've got acoustical liner and just pure insulation inside of there with a thickness, no ranges being defined inside of there. It's just flat out a value being assigned. So if I go back 2 inch rectangular, thermal lagging, and it's got the thickness to it. So again, same exact process if we were doing it for sheet metal as well. Now I've got those added into my database, right? So I've got the original one, and then I've got my custom ones in there as well. Go ahead and accept this. I'm going to go back into my Revit model, and we will need to reload that configuration. So if I go to my settings, we can see it was using that exact same fabrication database, but since we made a change, we need to go ahead and choose reload configuration, let it do some thinking, and it's going to pull over any changes to those services. Now if you're making a change like this and it's a work shared project, you know, if other people work on the project, you want to make sure they get out of the project, and then go ahead, go into the file, do the reload, and then once everyone creates a new local file, it would have those additional changes inside of it. So now that I've made that change, let's say I want to put 1.5 inches on this actual pipe run. So I'm going to tab select it again, and we can see right now it's still using that general insulation, but as I click in the cell, hit the pull down, we'll see we now have our 2 additional ones that again are not rule based or size based. I'm just saying, hey, I want 1.5 inch insulation on there. We can see the pipe gets a little bit larger. And if we just want to double check with the little cheater line I put in there, I'm going to offset that detail line 1.5 inches. And we can see that lines up. Or going the other way with it, right? I went ahead and I created that 1 inch as well. So going to the insulation specification, choosing 1 inch from that list, and again we're just getting the size down to what we want. So a couple ways to approach it. We can build additional insulation specifications and using different materials if we want to, and kind of follow the sizing rules based upon that material and temperature and things like that. Or we can go ahead and be a little bit more direct and actually give it a thickness only, and we choose that actual thickness to it. Both are going to apply the insulation the same way. It's just based upon how you want to lay everything out. And I hope you've enjoyed this tip about adding additional insulation for your fabrication database inside of Revit.